All right. Good evening, everyone. We are back. I hope everyone had a very restful and enjoyable holiday last week. And so I'm excited to be back here to continue our series of informational interviews with prominent political organizations. Again, my name is Tamia Booker. I'm a consultant with Power, and my background stems from experience working on campaigns, also working in government and advocacy organizations. I'm excited to be back here with you all again today as we continue this discussion. As you know, Gain Power is a collaborative multimedia platform for the values shared by the community of activists and professionals working to impact democracy, elections, and advocacy. Gain Power organized networking space and professional development programs, as well as career opportunities and marketing events dedicated to promoting and celebrating individual creative change makers, organizations, and campaigns seeking democratic and progressive change and justice. Our mission is to demystify, democratize, and diversify progressive politics through campaign programs and collaborations like this. Next week, we will have our Power 22 Blue event, and it'll be blue22.com. Sorry, I'm talking too fast. And on there, you'll see everything I talked about: career opportunities, job panels, informational sessions, plenaries with lots of speakers. And so I'll be sure to drop in the chat, the webpage, so you all can join us. And that starts next Thursday, December 9th. So for now, I'm going to introduce my beloved co-host, Cirillo, who represents Black with No Chaser. And I'll turn it over to him so he can introduce himself to you all.
Appreciate that, Tamia and Pat. Welcome to the quote-unquote show, man. Yeah, for everybody who doesn't know me, I'm Cirillo, last name Benego. I'm out here in Washington, D.C. Been in progressive politics now for almost nearly a decade. It's been, getting older. So, that means that we're getting up there in age, man. It's times are ticking. But nah, man, always good to be here with you all. Excited to have Pat here from the American Bridge to really talk about career possibilities, what you all, the exciting things you all have going on. Big shout out to Jessica Floyd, who is my old boss. So shout out to y'all, man. Y'all are really good hands with Jessica. She really knows her stuff. And so if you're working for them, I'm pretty sure you know exactly who Jessica Floyd is, what she's all about, which is getting wins. And so we have American Bridge here to talk about how in the hell we're going to get wins in 2022. But more importantly, though, who's going to be on the roster to help American Bridge get there. So welcome to the show, Pat. Thanks again to me for having me. And we have Black from Chase in the building.
Yeah, thank you both. Jess said to say hi. We are, I'm definitely excited to be here. The work you do is super important, and I'm just excited to have the opportunity to sort of share who we are, what we do, and talk about APA research and all the rest of it.
Can you start off by talking to us a bit about your journey, how you got here?
For sure. Yeah. So I've had a very varied career in the sense that I've worked a lot of different places, and very not varied in the sense that essentially since college, I've done opposition research and nothing but opposition research. So I've done gubernatorial race, House. I did a county executive race, although I was also the comms director there because everybody wears a lot of hats on those. I've been a state party research director. I've worked at American Bridge twice. I was actually here when the group was founded in 2011 and came back in 2014 to run our presidential oppo. And Senate races too. So I've sort of always been in this world of opposition research. I say a lot, like, of all the different parts of progressive politics, research is almost like a trade in a lot of ways, almost like being an electrician or something, in the sense that you learn a lot of skills, and once you have those skills, you always have them. It is super important, and it sort of opens up this world of research jobs for you, which are sort of all over the place. We can talk about those.
So I'm very familiar with the work that you all do, but I'm curious to know, I don't know where our viewers are. Can you talk a bit about what American Bridge does? I know you mentioned research, but could you dig into that a little bit more for our people?
Yeah, for sure. In a lot of ways, what we do is like what a research shop on a campaign would do, like what the DNC research shop would do, in the sense that we are collecting information on our Republican opponents in key races. That information comes from all over the place. There's a million different ways we collect it, everything from tracking folks in person with dedicated trackers in the states, to reading court records, to going through archival newspapers, public records. The list is essentially endless, but we do that work, and we sort of create these products, and we work on the independent expenditure side. So we work with sides that do IE spending. Essentially, we're not allowed to talk to the campaigns themselves. And we just take all this information, vacuum it up, and work to weaponize it and use it to win elections. That is ultimately our goal. That what that means is, I'll talk about some of the jobs we have open, but our digital team puts it out. We work with reporters to sort of break investigative stories. We have a award-winning video team that sort of produces our own videos, all kinds of stuff.
Sweet. So you kind of already started talking about it, but you all have a bunch of job openings on your website right now at AmericanBridgePack.hire.trackstar.com, right?
Yeah. Yes.
But they include things like researchers, trackers, digital comms, communication, state-based jobs, DC-based jobs, and an assortment of other job opens y'all have right now. And so, can you quickly touch base about what's open, what folks should be leaning into, if there's some more leads? So, for example, and I know I'm hitting you with a lot, but are these jobs where people left, openings, or are these newly added jobs, or the combination of both? If you don't mind touching on what's opening right now, what folks got to look forward to.
For sure. So it's a mix. One of the nice things about working at a group that's sort of institutional like American Bridge is, we have a lot of people who have worked here a long time. Some folks, especially in progressive politics, they come in for a cycle or 2 cycles and filter out. If you work here for a couple of years, you end up knowing people in essentially every progressive organization just because of how that sort of filtering works. So some of these are new jobs, especially the ones on my team. We are expanding our Oppo research, especially in the States. Things that are super important right now. We're really, focusing on state legislatures, which is something we've done in the past, but are ramping up on now, because I think everybody is starting to realize that they have a lot of control over election security. Things like, these Stop the Steal folks are working to weasel their way into a lot of places, and we need to sort of shine a spotlight on them. So that is another area sort of that our state research will be covering, sort of these, protecting the infrastructure of our elections, which is in that sense sort of a new area for us and has created a bunch of these jobs. So that's sort of the big area of expansion on my team. And we have entry-level jobs. Sort of the nice thing about being an institution that exists cycle to cycle like American Bridge is we have, not to brag, but I think we have some of the best training in research anywhere. We every time we learn how to do something, we essentially write it down, right, and sort of record videos and take notes. So we have the accumulated knowledge of years and years of research that we can then sort of hand over to new folks who haven't been in research at all. Which, if you're somebody like me who came up through campaigns, most of what you learn there is just in a panicked frenzy trying to get stuff done, because that's the nature of campaigns. So we have a bunch of entry-level research jobs up. Most of those will just be listed once on our website, but we're hiring 6 or 7 entry-level researchers. If you have some experience in Oppo, we are hiring senior researchers, which is, in terms of day-to-day, similar to the regular entry-level research job, except you take on a much more, you'll sort of work with the entry-level folks a little more, you'll take on bigger projects, you'll have more responsibility, that kind of thing. So those are the 2 sort of big ones on my team. I run, research, but on our communications team as well. So we have a couple digital jobs. These are, digital is not my area of expertise, despite how much I tweet during the workday. These are, to me, very interesting. We're hiring a digital director and a senior digital strategist right now. We're very unique in that we are not necessarily like a lot of groups. It's digital organizing, digital, working with voters directly. We're sort of a second order effect type thing. So we are essentially, communicating to things like reporters and tastemakers and people who can sort of amplify our information even more, create political narratives, that kind of thing. So it's sort of a unique area of digital digital work that's sort of different from a lot of similar groups to us. I do want to cover our trackers. So I started as a tracker. That was my first job in research. It is, I say this a lot to people. I have never been smarter or more informed about a campaign than in 2009 when I was a tracker and just going to every campaign event, every single one. And, it takes a person who can, sort of handle listening to Republicans talk for a lot. But if you're just getting into politics, nothing will teach you more than being a tracker. It is it can be a stressful job, especially if, you're running late and trying to get to all these events. But it is just an incredible learning experience. We hire these folks in states. Essentially, we play like a zone defense. So, we'll usually have 1 or 2 trackers per state. Many states will cover both the gubernatorial and the Senate race, and then also to the extent the state legislature is in play. So you'll be sort of bouncing around between all those. And it is a mix between in-person tracking and sort of digital tracking, live streamed events, radio appearances, that kind of stuff. And, there's a lot that people assume about Oppo, which is like the goal is always to find like the one thing that's going to like end the race, right? Like Todd Aiken. It's going to end a Senate race. Well, with trackers, like that always actually might happen. Like that, I mentioned Todd Aiken. That we found that, which had a big impact. So a lot of the tracking job is like sifting for gold, almost just like listening to everything these people say for the one thing that they screwed up, and then we will do everything we can to make that well known. So. Before I go on too much about that, we are hiring trackers in Florida, Kentucky, New Hampshire, Philadelphia, and Reno, with potentially more coming down the pike. Let's see. We also have some folks, we're some senior folks in communications we're looking to hire. These are, fairly high-level jobs. If you've worked campaigns before, our senior advisor communications job is open, which is more of a managerial position, but you really need a good background in communications, pitching, sort of on the record stuff, that kind of thing. And also being annoyed by me constantly as I check up on things. And I think that that's all of it. We also have a resume bank. So if you just want to toss us your resume and there isn't a job that's a good fit for you, we're a big organization and we're always looking.
So, you saw me chuckling when you were talking about trackers, because as someone who's worked with many candidates, I've been able to identify them on the other side of the room.
Oh, for sure.
So with that being said, you mentioned trackers, digital staff, senior staff. What's your hiring process like? I imagine there's a lot of vetting, background check, and it's easy for you all to do being research team. But what do you all have folks do? I'm sure maybe written samples or something of the sort. So we'd just love to know the range of what the process is like.
For sure. So don't worry too much about the background check. We are all very good at background checks, but we are not vetting you like a Senate candidate. It is as long as you're not out there tweeting very dumb things every day, you'll be fine on that. So essentially, our process is fairly straightforward. For the sort of research jobs outside of tracking, outside of digital, the process is almost always just an initial interview, which will be with the research director that covers the area you're interviewing for. And then sort of most important, like you mentioned, is a writing test. Our writing tests are like, clearly it's important that you be able to put a sentence together and express yourself, but our writing tests are really designed to sort of get a feel for how you think. Normally we'll just present you with like a problem, say like, here's a kind of business that you've probably never heard of before. How would you approach learning about it? And how would you approach, sort of figuring out what bad things it might have done? And that's just sort of not to get a feel for, if you've never done research before, it's more just to get a feel for how you approach problems, your level of curiosity, your level of sort of inventiveness, and just sort of digging into something that's sort of new. So those are extremely important. Another part of that will just be sort of a formatted document in our format, which if you've never seen a research document, can be a little bit of a pain to get used to, but I assure you they look like that for a reason. So after that, sometimes we'll just make the decision there. Sometimes we'll do a second round of interviews, bring in somebody else, but then we make a decision.
Cool.
Yeah.
I got a like quick follow up, and it's really just like the entry level jobs, because I feel like if you've been in opera research generally speaking, especially in politics, like generally it's not. I think that when people hear research, they're thinking about, I'm about to write a dissertation or some thesis. And research and politics campaigns can show up a bit different, right? And so for entry level folks who, obviously you have you all have a bank of training modules where people can if they get hired, then they'll have the opportunity to learn about the different ways in which you can do various points of research. So, but for folks out there saying, man, look, I really don't know what to expect, but I want to kind of get my feet wet on some Oppo research. What are some things that they could be doing right now just to kind of get some feelers out there if that's of interest to them?
Totally. So there's a few different ways you could approach it. What I did when I was sort of figuring out that research existed and I wanted to try to get into it was I just got my hands on a research book. Actually, I got my hands on one that was written about Sarah Palin, and it was written in about 2005 or 2006. And I just read through it and I tried to deconstruct everything they did in there. That's probably not the easiest way to get started, but it's not the worst either. I would say, so we actually posted almost all of our Trump opposition research online, which is at trumpresearchbook.com. I would say start looking through there and you'll see sort of the way we put things together, the way we form political narratives, the places we dug into as businesses and figured out, you're telling this government agency you make this much money, and you're telling this government agency you lost this much money. And you'll sort of see how all these pieces from different sources get pieced together, basically. But you're right. It is very different from academic research. I can tell you because I was absolutely terrible at college research and then came out of it and absolutely excelled at, opposition research. It's, if you ever find yourself late at night, sort of going on Wikipedia and sort of clicking around and getting interested in something and then getting on Google and then getting further down, the next thing you know, you have 60 tabs open and you know everything about this. That's sort of where what we're looking to weaponize here.
That's right, folks. Social media, Wikipedia, Google, you name it. A friend of mine, Rishi, that's my boy. He did a lot of opposition research for our team at the Hub. And one thing he taught me, and I forget, I want to say it's like Wayback Machine or something like that. It's like a time capsule.
Yep.
For folks out there, listen to this. If you want to know, and this is a good way to actually think about even your own personal pages, right? There's snapshots being made of all your pages all the time, especially if you're a public figure. So when people go, oh man, I don't know how to look up something in 2010, there's actually a website for that, but it takes snapshots of various platforms. You look up the website, there's an actual way in which you can get that data, that meta, whatever it is, that's archived on these websites. And so that's a really, really good place to start. That's like some free game for you. Usually folks get to that point right there. And so don't just think about social media right now, but if you want to really dig deep, behind how you find out more about these politicians and people running for office, then that would be a good way to start, especially when they begin to open up the process and they're going to announce being a candidate, they're going to start scrubbing, right, all of social media, and they probably do that beforehand. But if you can get ahead of the game and start getting and digging in, then that's a good place to start, y'all. That's just, one of those things.
That's completely right. And I want to say, like, not only is that right, it's the most addictive feeling in the world when a politician thinks they deleted something and you have it. It feels so good. Let me tell you, that's why I do this work.
Yes, there's a really good feeling. It really, it's like finding the right case. If you're a lawyer and like they got like the on point cases, and you like, yes, God, this is exactly what I need. That's what it feels like when you find a really, really, really good data point. That's really some good Apple research on a particular candidate or incumbent. And so, if y'all want to get into this, it's basically, if you like gossip and you like going down rabbit holes and you like to figure out everything about a particular subject matter or a person, place, or thing, then Apple research and politics may just be for you because it's really aimed at people that just want to know more about a particular thing or person. And so do keep that in mind if you find yourself going down rabbit holes, as Pat pointed out earlier. If you're one of those people, then maybe Apple research is for you, at least on an entry-level job.
For sure.
So I think of, when I think of like the research wing from campaigns, it was always super quiet when I would go down there, because I usually was in political, which is very loud because all you do is talk on the phone.
Yeah.
I'd love to know about your work culture pre-COVID, and then now, like what you all are doing to help staff. I always think of it as like a very quiet, organized space. But I'd love you're grinning, but I'd love to hear from you on.
Yeah, and you're totally right. And also, sort of a big gap pre-COVID to post-COVID. Especially post-COVID, we have a lot more remote folks generally who aren't even in DC. So, I would say you are right. Like, our folks do tend to skew a little bit to the quiet side. Especially, I've been known to come into the office and put on my headphones and stare at my screen without blinking for 8 hours and forget to talk to anybody. But that is not everybody. So, our staff skews fairly young. Especially on the entry-level jobs. So there is sort of, separate from me, the folks have happy hours and sort of, get together and, chat. We haven't been in the office for almost 2 years at this point. So a lot of that has sort of moved onto Slack, moved onto, we have a lot of fun Slack channels and that kind of thing. But, we're a big organization. I sort of mentioned earlier, but a big part of it is sort of building relationships across teams and within teams, and sort of building that, group of sort of political friends. There are folks, I've been at Bridge a very long time at this point, and there are folks that I, worked with over the years that all still hang out with each other basically. And, they have been back here in 4 or 5 years. So I like our culture a lot. I'm excited. We're going to start moving a little bit back into the office, sort of flexible scheduling. I'm excited to sort of be back seeing people in person and sort of get that rapport going a little bit. But yeah.
I'm glad to know it's on par with what I usually think. I would sometimes go sit among the research folks so I could have quiet. So
yeah,
glad you all have fun too.
Yeah, I should say there's our research folks. There are many, many comms folks and digital folks, and even our media monitoring folks. Sort of, a little bit louder on average.
So I know that we just kind of hit on about the organization and work culture and stuff like that. But I think one big thing for people trying to come into any organization is like, what's in it for me? And what I mean by that is, what are the benefits? I'm giving you my hard-earned like work, my time, my creative genius, whatever the case may be. So what's in it for folks from a benefits package that they can look forward to if they should be hired by American Bridge?
For sure. So I'm going to split that up into 2 parts because, I don't think folks talk about this enough. Obviously, there's the compensation side, the benefits side, that kind of stuff. And then there's also sort of the bargain of what are we doing for your career? What are we doing to sort of set you up for success going forward? What are we, sort of doing in the broader holistic sense? Because, not everything. A lot of our work is very exciting, and seeing your stuff in the newspaper is amazing. But sometimes, you got to spend 6 hours reading through Word documents, and that's just the way life is. So let's talk about sort of the bargain that I see, especially for our entry-level folks, is you come in and you work hard and are willing to learn, and we will teach you as much as can fit in your brain, basically. This is, sort of bringing folks, putting in that work on our end, on the management end, to really make it easy for folks to build these skills that they'll need for the rest of their career. It makes our life easier because, as people learn, they become better employees. But, I like promoting internally. I like helping folks move onto other jobs, not to brag, but much of the Biden campaign and current White House research staff came out of American Bridge. Hello, any of you who are on here. We help folks move up, and it is an incredible networking situation. In terms of, the other, the compensation side, we have a great benefits package, dental, vision, good healthcare, all that stuff. The pay, we are proudly a union shop. So we have essentially union negotiated compensation up until the management level, with sort of a contract and built-in raises, that kind of stuff, as well as all the other things they've negotiated into our CBA, not all of which I remember off the top of my head, but it is voluminous. We do, sort of, I mentioned hands-on training, hands-on reviews, sort of helping people learn their trade, basically.
Sweet. Question. During the collective bargaining process, is it like ever revisited? I'm just asking because usually it's like every so many years you revisit it based upon the conditions of current work environments and culture. And so how often do you all actually revisit the CBA?
Yeah. All full disclosure, I'm not actually involved in the bargaining myself, but I believe our last contract was a 2-year contract, and they just wrapped up a 3-year contract. So,
okay, sweet.
Yeah.
There you go, folks. So if you're out there and you're trying to figure out, man, when is next time they're going to be in this part of this bargaining process? Get on right now. It's going to be about 3 years, so hold tight. And if you're never than that, then you can go ahead and try to throw in your chips about how you can bargain for you as a union worker, part of American Bridge. There you go.
Yeah. And it's SEIU.
Sweet. Which is also very, very, very good. SEIU, if you know them, if anybody knows about SEIU, they drive a hard bargain. So if SEIU's on your ass about labor, then you're on the right side of things. I don't know. To me, is it your turn? Is it still my turn? Or is it whatever? This is a huge question, right? Because, being that it's Black with No Chaser, and the part of the reason why Game Power teamed up with us, we partnered, is because we want to get to the core of making these teams more diverse, right? Whether it be, Black and brown folks, people coming from diverse backgrounds, socioeconomic statuses, you name it. Right now, currently, the status of, if not just your team, but overall outlook of the actual organization, where does American Bridge right now stand on diversity?
Yeah, for sure. And this is, this has never been absent from what we've thought about. This is obviously, we've been working to up our game pretty consistently on this. I will also say, in some sense, COVID forced us to rethink a lot of it, because a lot of this sort of proactive outreach was sort of knowing folks who were organizers on campaigns and knowing folks that we would sort of know in person. And we really had to, when COVID hit, that sort of passive meeting folks wasn't happening anymore. So this is, we've approached this from a few different angles. It is absolutely all of my research directors, myself, everybody at the organization. We know this is a priority. It's something that when you're hiring, you're going to be asked about it. How are you ensuring you're going to get a diverse pool? How are we working proactively? If you look at the normal way that researchers have come up through democratic politics, which was never planned by anybody, it just sort of happened. It essentially looked like this. It was folks would intern on campaigns. Those folks would learn that research existed, end up getting hired by the research shop, or was in debate club with somebody in the research shop in college. Campaigns are, in my experience, desperate to bring people on, not necessarily an institution that has like the ability to do proactive search. As so a lot of folks who were in research would hire their friends. Those folks would get experience and therefore be the next research director, do the same hiring process. That's just sort of the natural system that really served us very poorly in terms of bringing in a diverse pool. American Bridge, because we're institutional, we're here cycle to cycle. We're not panic hiring. We are hiring very thoughtfully. We can sort of put out, put together a plan and make it happen. So if you name it, we are working on it on this front, basically. I have, a lot of this is just person to person, proactively reaching out to people, proactively doing coffees, doing interviews, that kind of thing. Even things like, when COVID hit, I realized I did not personally know any field organizers in 2020, which was, one of the main places we hire from. So I had to go out, and I was doing everything from sending cold emails to people to just tweeting at people to just like, hey, you want to do a coffee, like that kind of stuff. That was, I am not the most outgoing person, but that was something that actually had incredible turnaround, just that sort of human outreach. But it's definitely one of these areas where all of my hiring research directors are sort of encouraged to do what they can, be as creative as they can. Of course, there's the HR angle as well, which is, getting it out to the right lists, getting it out, to you all, me doing these kind of things is a part of the strategy. But I really am opposed to the idea that there is, one thing you're going to do. You're going to send out the job posting to this email list, and now you're a diverse organization. Like it has to be an expectation, and it has to be part of the hiring process at every point, basically. And you can't just hire your friends. You got to be proactive.
No, for sure. And I appreciate that, Pat. I guess what I gleaned from this is clearly there's some opportunity within American Bridge to kind of reach more diverse candidates, even a person with disabilities, right? I think oftentimes we forget about those folks, right? Like a lot of times. And one of the things I will say, this is not just American Bridge. This is really predominantly white organizations just existing in progressive spaces that are highly funded, right? Is that there's this wantingness to recruit and a highly diverse pool of people, and even rapidly hire people. And so I appreciate the fact that you said that we're not trying to hire people, which is important. I think also another key component to this, I know we touched on it a little bit, is the culture. I think a lot of times, though, what reason why there's a lack of retention with these progressive organizations, and let's be honest, all the well-funded ones are all white, right? The majority of them. And I call it, you guys, Jessica here. Yep. We'll probably go back and forth. And I call it being snow-capped, which is essentially like you start an organization and it's all white at the top, and you try to bring on folks of color at the bottom, and maybe you sprinkle a couple in between on mid manager level. That's about it. That's where it ends. And so I think the point to be made is that is as we're thinking about, and this again, whoever's watching this, is as we're thinking about when we're moving into an organization, it's not just about responsiveness to hire Black and brown people or people out there that have, that are asimilar to those working at the particular organization, but how the responsiveness to the current climate and the culture that's dictating you to want to hire or need to hire diverse candidates, right? Because that's really what the shift is. It's the outside forces that's making progressive organizations dig deep and figure out, hey, where are the best and brightest candidates that we can find? And quite frankly, sometimes too, though, it's part of it is understanding that the resumes are not going to look quite like the ones you want to get. And so
Totally.
I would say, I would petition you, Pat, is, when you're looking at candidates of color and you're out there, like the only way you can cast the widest net is looking beyond the four corners, really giving as many people as a chance to come through the pipeline. And I think that at the end of the day, when it comes down to, the test is really what's going to like allow you to kind of see where the creative genius is at. And I think one thing you point out, I'll shut it down here, is that when you're talking about the creative genius of someone, you're able to actually look beyond just what you would traditionally look for in the candidate, but actually like the methodology. And I think that, it's really, really, really part is actually, honestly, just taking a chance. And I would just say this, and I know I'm very passionate about this. And again, Nash was, but the thing about it is that we have this like nomenclature and the way in which we do business and progressive politics that really does keep a lot of folks out of the discussion, right? And so again, we're trying to shift the culture of not just American Bridge, but also progressive politics as we know it. Then we just got to do better in allowing ourselves to see candidates for who they are and what that value is, and giving chances, because we know this country has given white folks 400 years worth of chances. And so at least we can give somebody, a breath worth of chance here in America and at American Bridge. So yeah, with that being said, Tamia, we want to bring over you, sis.
Yep. You're muted.
Sorry. You think I know how to do that by now after doing this for almost 2 years. So it looks like we have some questions coming in from some of our audience members. It looks like a woman spent their first year, on the 2020 Klobuchar race. She did local campaigns, and she wants to know how she can get into research, rapid response, and broader comms and management. What advice do you have for her, and what spaces at AB where she, with her background, that someone like her could fit?
For sure. So I would say, first of all, apply at American Bridge. That is going to be your first best option. I will say just sort of, broader career advice for somebody with this sort of level of experience. It really comes down, might be odd to say, it comes down to lifestyle. In my experience, I did 5 years of campaigns, basically. That was moving once a year, twice a year, doing my taxes. Sometimes I'd have residency in 3 states in a year. I did not have a lot of possessions, but it was like rocket fuel in terms of moving up, in terms of just like getting responsibility, because campaigns, they're essentially, in my experience, will just cram as much responsibility onto as you can handle. And then that all goes on your resume and you can move up super fast. But it can be a hard life, especially if you're moving around. If you don't want that, it is by no means necessary. Coming to DC, moving to a state capital, sort of embedding yourself in a political culture somewhere where, you can sort of work your way through groups. Obviously, I've done this in DC, and from there, it's really just getting your foot in the door on that. It's building these relationships. American Bridge, I think, is a great opportunity for somebody at this point in their career. You've got the experience, and a place like American Bridge, or the DNC or the DS, the D trip, is sort of where you'll make all those connections and really sort of give you a million options in the future.
The next question is, do you hire people without campaign experience?
Absolutely. I like campaign experience. I have a lot of campaign experience. I would say at this point, I think the majority of my researchers don't have it. It is by no means necessary. If you want to come through Bridge and then go out on campaigns. If you want to come to Bridge as a researcher, work your way up to senior researcher and go be a deputy on a Senate race, or even a research director on maybe a second tier Senate race, that is a totally viable career path. If you want to do it the other way, you want to be an associate on a Senate race, come here as a senior associate and work your way up to deputy. That's another way you could do it.
Cool. I wonder, and Amy, if you can hear us on the back end, are there any more questions out there? Because I think that we are, in terms of hours, I think we're wrapping up on hours. Yeah. And I don't want to belabor the point. I think that Amy says she's curious about something. So let's see.
Oh, yeah. Are paid.
Yeah. Independent expenditures, real quick, because I'm all about educating people. Can we explain what an independent expenditure is really quickly, and then dive into what you all are doing in terms of with IE and not just research, right?
Totally. And totally on me for not bringing that up. So essentially, there are 3 vice presidents of American Bridge. There's me, I run research, and then there's communications, which I work with very closely. And then sort of our newest area is our independent expenditure side. And this is, if you remember Citizens United, essentially you have your coordinated side campaigns. You can spend money on ads, and that money has to come through the regular campaign finance system with limits. And then there's sort of the independent expenditure side with unlimited contributions. I believe all of us agree that it should not exist, and this is an extremely stupid system that our Supreme Court has given us, and we would like to change it. But this is the world we live in, and we can't just roll over. So essentially, we started out just doing research back in 2011 and tracking, and sort of working with other groups that did the paid media. Coming into 2020, we started buying our own ads. And this is a program that I am extremely proud of. Essentially, what we focused on coming into 2020 was what we saw as the 3 key states, Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania for the presidential race. Must wins, absolutely critical. So we went in. This does tie into research. We sort of went in and we found folks who voted for Trump and then regretted it, basically. And we talked to them, human conversations, just sort of recorded it, cut ads out of it, which were extremely powerful, tested really well, really focused on, to put it one way, losing less badly with rural voters. I don't think any of us really thought we were going to win rural voters, but we could, there's a real case to be made there that these people were getting left behind. And sort of, finding folks who really experienced that, really saw it, and, could talk to these voters in their own way, in their own language, came up with essentially really effective ads. So, now we do paid ad spending, basically. This is a bit of a smaller team. So we don't have, I don't believe we have any job postings up for it right now, although that could change in the future. So Amy, I'm just reading your chat here. We do hire diverse consultants. I don't know all of our consultants offhand. This is an area that Danny Kazin runs for us, if you all know him. But we have a small in-house staff. Basically, we have a we work on our end for finding folks for these ads and producing them, and also we have data folks inside who work on that.
Sweet. And for folks out there wondering, if you fall under the diverse consulting group, is there a portal system? You gotta just know some folks at American Bridge and say, hey, so if you don't know anybody, just tough luck. What does that process look like, and to get into the pipeline? Obviously the DNC, our beloved institution, is trying to do its best and figuring out or reconfiguring their processes on getting more diverse consultants into their system. I'm wondering, especially how big American Bridge is. Do you all have a process or beginning to kind of configure a process that can get more diverse consultants to the pipeline?
So I'll answer your question in two ways. One, yes. Two, we're rapidly exiting my pay grade of things that I know about, because this is definitely something that's happening, and definitely something meetings on the paid side. I am generally, just working on the content for them. So I can't give you any details on that, but I can tell you absolutely, like with Just Floyd, like this is a priority.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, folks, we got 10 minutes left. Tamir, what do you have?
Well, you asked a consultant question, which I was going to ask, which is awesome. Amy, do you have anything else? If not, let's see. I may have another question. Actually, I do have a question. How large is your organization, or small? How many people work there?
Yeah. So my team is, without referencing my spreadsheet, approaching 40 and expanding from there. That's the biggest team by far.
Okay.
I am told 71 people, according to my Slack that just came through. That sounds about right. That's not just my team. That's the entire organization at this point.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Not a bad team. Not a bad team. Not too big, but not.
It's big for a research shop.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes.
Mighty and research. Yeah, I can imagine. The amount of content you all drum up and give over to the comms folks to try and figure out what the hell they're gonna do with it. So I know they're probably like pulling their hair out daily, dealing with a team of 40 people, and then a smaller shop, interdepartmental type stuff.
If they're not pulling their hair out, we're not doing our jobs.
I love it.
Yeah.
And I don't know, to me, if you want to say the last question by
yeah. Looks like there's a couple questions about the war rooms. Are war rooms just for the presidential campaign, and what do those look like if they're not?
Yeah, so this was a bit of a branding exercise / sort of way of so all of our work coming into the election of Donald Trump before that was focused on particular elections, right? And then sort of after 2016, looking at what we could do to be useful at that point, it became very clear that like we needed to focus on the day-to-day opposition research attacks on a sitting president, which is a very different world from a regular campaign, because this person is running all of the executive branch agencies. They're doing a lot. So essentially, we consolidated all our stuff into what we called the Trump War Room, which was in many ways similar to our 2016, Trump presidential team, except built out sort of to last for 4 years, to work on that sort of much longer time scale than we had done, sort of very close working between our comms and research folks, but ultimately very similar to, our settings for Senate campaigns or gubernatorial campaigns and that kind of thing. We just called it the Trump War Room because it was a little bit different framing, and ultimately we were just trying to find a good way to explain how you do use those 4 years to build up a drumbeat of, everything from mismanagement to ethics problems to, I'm sure everybody remembers what those years were like.
Oh, I have so many questions about that, but we don't have time, so it's okay. I won't even get into it. The very last question, and Pat, thank you so much for your patience, man. Really do appreciate you and all the insight. And by the way, really quick plug, if you have not signed to the Blue Conference, it begins on December 9th. There'll be plenaries, there'll be panels, there'll be all kind of information. So blue2022.events. Go there now, go there tomorrow. Go there tomorrow evening, sometime before December 9th. Tell your friends, because many more panels like this and a host of other things you can tap into is going to be right there at your fingertips. You should definitely check it out right now, because we're heading into a busy midterm. And so we're going to need all of our best and brightest out there on campaign trails, working in progressive organizations like American Bridge. So I just want to say that right before we get to the last question, which is, Pat, what is the best thing, in your opinion, about working for American Bridge?
It is literally against the law for candidates to call me at 10 o'clock at night and give me annoying research ideas. That is my favorite thing. That might not apply to everybody. I will say that if you have not had the pleasure of having an angry candidate call you in the middle of the night, it is a great thing to be rid of. But really, I was just talking about this with somebody today. We have the freedom, if you're doing our job on a campaign or for a party committee, there are a lot of political considerations. You're working on vetting ads, you're working on vetting donors, you're doing a million different things. We get to focus on weaponizing opposition research against Republicans and just that. And sort of that focus is an incredible luxury in this business. So that's sort of my favorite thing.
That's cool beans. And follow the money, folks. You follow the money, you'll hit the right where you need to be, which is a sweet spot. And by the way, though, look, make sure y'all go into American Bridge, AmericanBridgePAC.org, right? And check out everything they're doing. But if you want to go directly to the actual, like where all the jobs are, so on and so forth, it's AmericanBridgePAC.hire.trackstar.com. You can go there today and any other day to check out what they're hiring for. Obviously, Patches, gave us a whole slew of options, including comms, trackers, researchers, Oppo research, and so on and so forth. So take a look at everything they got to offer. Obviously, one of the biggest, progressive organizations out there when it comes to, research. And so if you're into research, you want to get into research, whatever the case may be, if you want to do a cycle, get off and come back, whatever, I don't know, right? Many options out there you should take advantage of. Today, one thing I did take from this is that they have a vested interest in training folks in the organization. So it's very, very cool because a lot of times you get into an organization and there's really no training modules and everybody's just kind of flying by the seat of their pants. But there's some institutional knowledge there that really stems beyond even Pat's existence at American Bridge, which is really, really sweet. So everything before Pat and everything after Pat and all things in between, you get knowledge and firsthand knowledge of folks that have been working at American Bridge. And that's really, really dope, right? And that's the collegiality. That's the alumni network of American Bridge. That's the power of American Bridge. And so it's really, really cool. And Pat, we do appreciate your time. Tamia, what do you got to say?
You said it all. Thank you, Pat, for being with us today. We appreciate you and your knowledge in the org. And I know you've been working there a long time. So thank you for the work that you do.
And thank you for having me. And also thank you for all the work you do. It's super important. And I'm glad you're out there doing it.
All right. Well, folks, we'll see you next Tuesday. Thank you, everybody. Bye.